Hey guys, it's Greg from Beastie and in this video I want to show you a new game from Mythic Games, 6 Siege. So it's a tabletop skirmish game and it's a more real theme, let's say, because we have terrorists and anti-terrorists or something like this, and you are going to just fight each other to win. So we are quite late with our review, but it was quite crazy time the end of the year, so that's why we didn't have much time to prepare it earlier. So let me show you what are our thoughts about this game after playing few times using prototype from Mythic Games.
Let's start with one of the strongest aspects of the game, its immersion. 6 Siege catches the soul of the original IP flawlessly, and if you have ever played one of the games from the series, you will catch all of the references instantly. Possible actions, available equipment, team members, but most of all, a highly tactical and very analytical approach to decisions you have to make under the pressure of time are embodied here very true to the IP. It works in favor of the board game as well, because everything you do or can do is explained by the theme and strongly tied to it. We have mixed feelings about tactical games where dice plays a crucial role, and this is the reason why, for example, Marvel Crisis Protocol is not played at our home as often as I would prefer it. Greg's rolls are usually bad, and in skirmish games it frustrates him enough to not make an effort to mitigate his luck better or prepare a more useful strategy. Dice in 6 Siege play a crucial role, however, you are going to roll them because of your good planning or bad decisions of your opponent. And you can be sure your roll will cause at least a moderate damage. Attacks here are devastating by the rule, often fatal to the opponent, and the whole idea here is to plan your game in a way where the opponent will not have a chance to roll dice against you, or at least he will have much less these chances than you. This approach rewards tacticians and punishes reckless attitudes, and makes dice a tool, not something deciding exclusively about your victory. Now let's talk about quite a controversial aspect of the game, real-time limitations. Not only during the session, but even during composing your team and picking up the equipment for the mission, you are restricted with time limits given by the app. You can choose how strict this limitation should be, taking into consideration how fluent with the game you are, for example. What is good, you can set different limits between players, which means someone fluent with the game can be very limited with time, so he will be more exposed to mistakes or simply make fewer actions because he missed his time window. At the same moment, a total newbie can have a comfort of much more time to distribute for his planning. It all sounds fair, but when you start the game for the first time, it's highly possible that ticking clock will stress the hell out from you and will be your worst enemy, like in my case. It's also possible that ticking clock will make 6 Siege impossible to play for you. That's why you can turn this function off at all. But hear me out, without time limitations, game loses almost half of its charm and becomes a great but not that unique skirmish game. Time limit for every round is something throwing you off immediately and ultimately double thing starting your journey with 6 Siege. But if you're willing to play despite initial paralysis, then every inch of effort is worth it. Time limitation, however, is only the peak of complex iceberg here. When the core rules are maybe not that hard, the number of extra rules, conditions, terrain components, different items, type of obstacles, etc. can be so overwhelming for the first few sessions that it could test your patience to its limits. And despite a really nice rulebook, I still have a feeling that actions like Overwatch or using upper level could be more explained and even more examples could be provided. But let's not judge the manual now and wait for its final version. You know, In the end, Six Siege is not something more complex than typical mature skirmish games, but many of the board gamers are not accustomed to it, and it could be quite a shock and obstacle when backers get their fulfillment and start to learn the game, especially because after the first session you will still feel you do not know or are not fluent enough with a huge part of the game. Siege requires effort and time to be learned. Is it worth it? 100%. But it's up to you if you will have enough time and willingness to face this challenge. And why it's worth all of this effort? Because of the tactical aspect mentioned at the beginning. When you understand the usage of most of the items, the benefit of the different covers, and you connect this with games rules, scenario conditions and other aspects, you will finally start to appreciate a genius mind responsible for designing the game. This is the moment you want to play more and more and more to master your planning and try different approaches. And if you find a worthy opponent, then Six Siege could be the most playable game in your house. With all of the content unlocked during campaign and expansions, the number of staff randomizing your session and introducing new variables is insane and makes Siege one of the most complete skirmish games we have on the market. With prototypes, we want to avoid scoring the game because still a lot can change and often we do not get a chance to try every aspect available in the final version to make a fair judgment. We get the same case with Six Siege, but if the final game with a mass of unlocked content during the Kickstarter will manage to have a lower entry level for the new players than in the prototype, then we get a really strong and unique skirmish game overshadowing most of the stuff we have on the market. That's all for today. See you at the next game.